Hello there, warriors. Welcome to another episode. And I so appreciate your patience and allowing me to do that really short episode last week in the middle of one of life's many trials. I tell you what, do you ever feel like the hits keep coming? I know they've been coming for the better part of 25 years for me. And I really can't think of a period where there wasn't something big going on in my life. Whether it was Jamie's addiction and other challenges we've had with business building and, financial and then of course Jamie being shot when she was 18, and then all of that came with that, with, this guy being sent to prison and all this stress that came with that, and the danger, not knowing. And then all those years of just chaos and drama and trauma and fear, really paralyzing fear. And and then, Jamie's murder, obviously, that's a huge one. And then in the wake of it, we've got all of this stuff with the trial. Can you believe this? In August, it'll be 9 years since Jamie was murdered. And we've only had a preliminary hearing. We don't have a date even yet for this murder trial. You know what? I'm going to come back and say something about that later that I just thought of, but I want to talk to you more about what's going on now. So, everyone has stuff, right? We all have things we have to deal with. We all have challenges. And, some of us have seen evil up close. Some of you have health challenges. We have aging parents. The older we get, we lose loved ones. We have all sorts of challenges. You know what it's called? Life, right? That's what it is. It's life. And we all experience these things. And in my book coming up, I'm really getting pretty excited about this book, but it really has also been delayed because of what I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. But I'm excited about it because at the core of it is courage. And it's called Burn the Map, but it's really about how life rarely goes as planned, right? Everything, that we think is going to happen, that picture we have of our lives, or even just we don't really think a lot about the future, but the way it is good. It's fine. And then life has a way of coming in and torching that map, that idea, that plan, that path we are on. And then what do we do next? How do we handle it? What do we do? And I've had so many of these things happen in my life that I thought it was a good topic and a good way to bring a book together. But really, at the core of it, like I said, is courage. So, what better way for Valerie, who, by the way, let's not forget, I don't know how long ago, publicly declared war on the beast. Okay. This is no joke, my friends. And your spiritual beliefs might be way different from mine, but I'm pretty sure we've all seen evil. I'm pretty sure we all know it's out there. And, my belief happens to be that it's Satan, but I don't like to give him credit. So I always call him the big beast, but he's got a lot of helpers. And so we've got these beasts running around. And so you go and you declare war. And what do you think? Everything's just going to be rosy. Right. I was literally laying in bed last night thinking, what were you thinking, girl? Declaring war on the beast? So yeah, well, here we are now, right? But I know I have God on my side, but I I knew it would be a battle. I knew what I'd be up against. But this one is really interesting because here I am doing this book, and I just feel like this book's going to help a lot of people. And I've told some stories of other people in this book. Sprinkled throughout are just tidbits and stories and experiences and wisdom from other warriors, different types. They've gone through different things. And just you're going to be so inspired by the things that they have to say, and I think this book is really going to help a lot of people. Well, the beast can't have that, right? So I really feel like, I mean, I don't want to make this all about me because this is about Sean, but gosh dang, my friends, how interesting. I'm literally to the point where I was in final edit of this book, and then what happened was 2 weeks ago, Sean tore his pectoral muscle. That's a pectoral major. That's a big muscle, lifting weights. And So he went to the ER, of course, and they thought he was going to have surgery. That's what the ER said. Now, go make an appointment with an orthopedic surgeon. That night he wakes up in excruciating pain, not in his chest, in his knees and his ankles, like joint pain, just massive attack. So he's had gout before, so he thought gout. And so, he's going through the week thinking that, and they're giving him pain medication. And of course, you know how we feel about opiates, especially. Now, Sean's had them before with some other injuries and has never had an issue. So thank God for that, because they were giving him more and more. And then he finally on Friday he ends up with some injections in his knee, and then I don't know how many doctor visits and all of this, and he's having cortisone shots, and then they're giving him codeine. That'll help the pain. That's not working. This is on Friday. Saturday, he's back in the ER for this pain. Now they're talking about septic arthritis, or possibly a septic bursa-sac injury in his knee. Of course, I'm going, how can that be all over his body? But then, you're looking things up and you're researching and realizing, isn't it funny how you realize or learn things about your body that you didn't even know about until somebody has some kind of condition, right? No idea about all this kind of stuff, but your body can have this reaction. So it could be that he had, this attack of gout. By the time he had blood tests for gout, he was already on medication. So we're not, and it was his uric acid was fine, but we don't know, right? All these markers just showing massive inflammation. And so anyway, here he is in the ER. They send him home, and it's not getting better. And by Monday, he makes an appointment with his primary care. I take him on Tuesday. I mean, his poor wife is trying to work during all this, and she's already had to take time off for another situation that they've gone through that's been really heartbreaking and hard. And so I took him to the doctor on that Tuesday. So now it's been over a week, and they give him injections in his knee and pain injections and all this kind of stuff. We're thinking that's going to be great, right? That's a Tuesday. Wednesday night, he ends up in the ER in excruciating pain. He hasn't been able to walk at this point for like 10 days. So he was in the emergency room, in the emergency room all night, and they admitted him, and he was in the hospital for 3 days. And as I'm recording this on Monday, and I'm going to drop it in on Wednesday. But yesterday, Sunday, was a terrible day for him. Awful, probably because a lot of these pain meds are wearing off. And I just got a message from him this morning, because I'm taking him to the doctor again. And just as soon as I get done recording this, that he's a bit better today, that things are starting to turn around. Thank God. But what I really wanted to talk about in all of this, a couple things. One is that, I call them minefield moments, right? These are these times when everything else stops in your life. Have you had these moments where everything else fades away? Suddenly, I didn't care about my book. I didn't care about much else. I forgot to do something for a client. In my financial side of my life, I still have a client, and I forgot to do something really important, which I never would have forgotten. And it was just, I was under a lot of stress. Obviously for Sean, it's just, he's 37 years old. And it was like I was transported back to that helplessness of Jamie all those years in addiction, unable to save her, unable to help her, unable to relieve this pressure, this beast. And I felt the exact same way. So helpless and trying everything I could to help, but it just didn't have any answers. Just trying to be there and be supportive, but it felt helpless. But even more than that, I want to talk to you about something about fear, because in the middle of all of this, when they were talking about septic arthritis, sepsis, right? I think we all know about sepsis. That gets into your bloodstream, a bacterial infection. It can be hard to stop. It can be fatal. And I'm not the kind of person that goes to worst case scenario. Typically, I'm not the kind of person that's, I'm usually, come on, we can do this. Everything's going to be okay. But what happened was, a week ago today, I was trying to tell Sean he needed to go back to the ER. I would take him, and it was early morning, and he's downstairs, and his wife's upstairs, in the master bedroom, and he's downstairs in the guest room. And so he's texting me because it's early, and he knows that I'll be awake for sure, because I wake up at dark 30. No, pre-dark 30. But anyway, I said, let's go to the emergency room. I'll take you. And he goes, no, I'm just so tired. He hasn't slept I'm telling you, it's been like maybe 2 hours a day in the last 2 weeks. But at this point, he hadn't slept hardly at all. He goes, no, I'm just too tired. I can't go. I'm too tired. I need to sleep. I'm going, no, 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 no. Let's go to the ER. And then it's radio silence. No text, no phone call. I can't get a hold of him. And that's just not like Sean. He's very communicative with me, and it just went dark. And of course, what did I do? In the middle of writing a book about courage, I panicked. I was so scared, you guys. I started thinking I was going to lose my other child. I just had, I'm sorry. You'll see throughout Burn the Map in this book that, I'm honest, I'm real. I'm not going to try to pretend that I've got it all figured out. Never will. I will never be that person. In fact, it frustrates me when I see people who are, coaches or whatever they're, and they pretend they have it all figured out. Really, I don't think you have it all figured out. Life's complicated and everybody's human, and we all have fears and we all have anxiety about things and doubt and moments when we don't know what to do. And so that was me. And I mean, I even dropped that in the book that I went there. I went into that dark place. And what's kind of interesting is that it was Rich that was going, be positive. It's all going to work out. Like, he was really the one that was a bit of a rock through that. So I really do appreciate that. But it just felt like, really, God, another thing? Like, WTF? How many things? It's a lot. Things coming at me, the fiery darts for 25 years. And yeah, I went there. I'm just telling you, that's the truth. So, but I also want to tell you a couple other things that I did do right. I mean, I did try to keep editing my book in the middle of all this, in between. I even did it when Sean was asleep at the hospital, and I sat in his room and did a little editing. But it's kind of weird because a couple of things. One is that it's turned out, as far as the book goes, I would rather this never happen to Sean, but as far as the book goes, there's been some insight. And when I stepped back and wasn't able to keep bombing through the final edits, when I got back into it, I went, wait a minute, this is not flowing properly, or this section isn't flowing into that one, or I didn't say this correctly. So it's really been actually better that I had this roadblock and had to step back and delay the publishing of this book. So I will be getting to that, by the way, this week. Hopefully I'll be figuring out the schedule. I'll figure out when I will be able uh, to finally publish it, because I really do want you to read it. But I wanted to tell you a couple things that I did right in the middle of all this. And I mean, so what do you do? What do you do when you have these minefield moments? How about the minefield moments that turn into 2 weeks? So one of the things is that I prayed a lot. I still am. Prayed a lot. Even when it felt like God was silent, even when it felt like every turn was worse news, every day was nothing was getting better, I just kept praying. I just, sometimes even you might do it because you don't know what else to do. And I think that's okay. So, I just kept chatting with God, and I just kept, and I've been asking for a miracle. I've been asking for big, bold prayers, and and also pouring out my heart and letting him know how I'm feeling, and how, not like he doesn't already know how I'm feeling, but having this communication where it's just like, I'm so distraught, and help us, please. I mean, I was doing it all, okay. But here's another really important thing, and that is that I went to my gratitude box more than I ever have since I've had the box, and I have thousands of slips of paper in there. But in this past 2 weeks, I've put in more slips in that 2 week period than any other 2 week period by far, since I've been doing this intentional gratitude. And I was chatting with my niece a couple days ago, Shawnee. Her son was in the ER at the same time as Sean. Oh my gosh. And it was because of the flu and some dehydration, and he's fine, but still, right? Scary. So I was chatting with her, and she mentioned, I think it was her, somehow we talked about gratitude. And I was telling her how much I'd gone to my gratitude box. And she said, yeah, it really does rewire the brain. And that's one of the things, one little snippet that I wanted to add to the book, because I actually have a section on rewiring the brain, but I hadn't really connected gratitude to it. It was about something completely different. But anyway, the fact is that, my niece Shawnee's lost her brother and her cousin Jamie, who was her closest cousin, her first best friend, a month apart. And I have a lot of Shawnee in this book, and you're going to really find some incredible wisdom. And by the way, she said, well, I don't know. I asked her if I could interview her for the book, and she goes, I don't know what I could add. Oh my gosh, there's so many incredible snippets. And she expands on something about gratitude too that I can't wait for you to read about. So the point is that gratitude is really incredible. And even if you feel like you don't have anything to be grateful for, pick something in the room, anything. If you've said it 50 times, if you put it in your gratitude box, I don't know, 100 times, it doesn't matter. I have probably so many repeats in there. And so what I do is I write on a little slip of paper the date and what I'm grateful for, and I say it out loud before I put it in the box. And, I got to tell you, honestly, a couple days ago, I was sitting there and I'd done a few, and then Rich came in. I was sitting at the kitchen table and I just was looking around, and all of a sudden I said to him, I've got nothing. I mean, obviously I had plenty of things, but I had that moment where I felt like I had nothing to add. So I want to encourage you, if that's you, if you feel like there's nothing to put in the gratitude box, the gratitude container, your journal, I hope you're practicing intentional gratitude. Super powerful. But if you don't feel like there's anything, just look around the room and be grateful for the electricity. Be grateful for the table. I could have said the coffee table, I guess, looking into the living room. I could have said the table I was sitting at. There's so many things. You don't have to always be so deep and so profound for gratitude. So, my friends, I hope this encourages you by, me being transparent about my fear, about my battle with courage, about me still duking it out with my beast. And then, hopefully a couple ways that when you get into these situations, you can find your way out of them. You can always have a tool, some kind of, if we don't have a tool in the middle of these situations, we panic, we're frustrated, we're scared, and we just, head down that road where our beasts want us to go. And where they want us, let me tell you something right now, my friend. No matter what you believe, this force that's against you, that you're feeling, that resistance, it wants you in fear. That is truly the number one place that our beasts want us, is scared. Because if we're scared, we're not going to move. We're not going to live in gratitude. We're not going to do what we can to overcome that grip of fear. We're not going to believe that no matter what happens, we'll be okay on the other side. We're not going to even be able to get through our day-to-day lives if we're paralyzed by fear. So know that nobody's fearless. Even someone who speaks about courage. I get scared like everybody else. The difference between courageous people, warriors, is that we do it anyway. We do it scared. We stand up and we fight, even when we're shaken in our boots. That's what courage is all about. It's not about the absence of fear. It's about you standing up and saying, no more. I will no longer allow fear to overcome me. At the same time, I recognize that I'm human and I'm going to feel fear. So go ahead and feel that fear, and you stand up anyway. And you know that you are not fighting alone. God has your back. The most powerful force in the universe is fighting with you. And I hope it helps a little bit to know that I'm always standing, cheering you on, and fighting alongside you as well. Choose courage, my friends, because your story matters. So you must begin to live it courageously.